Day 1, the first thing I remember is the smell. A pungent mix of formaldehyde and decaying flesh, the kind of odor that sticks to the back of your throat and refuses to let go. I woke up in darkness, my wrists bound by rough, coarse ropes that dug into my skin with every movement. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, my mind foggy. Panic set in as I struggled to remember how I got here. Light flooded the room as a door creaked open. I squinted, trying to make out the figure in the doorway. He was tall and thin, with an unsettlingly calm demeanor. His eyes were a cold, piercing blue, devoid of any warmth. He wore a white lab coat, stained with splatters of various colors. "Good morning," he said, his voice eerily soothing. "You're probably wondering where you are." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, and all that came out was a raspy croak. "Don't strain yourself," he continued, walking towards me. "You're in my workshop. My name is Dr. Marcus Hale, and you, my dear, are going to help me with my latest masterpiece." Dr. Hale didn't waste any time. He injected me with something that made my head swim, then began his preparations. He explained each step in meticulous detail, as if I were a student in one of his classes. He spoke of preserving beauty, of capturing it in its purest form. His words were like a twisted symphony, a macabre dance between madness and artistry. I watched in horror as he wheeled in a young woman, her eyes wide with terror. She was beautiful, with long blonde hair and porcelain skin. Dr. Hale caressed her face gently, almost lovingly, before beginning his work. I couldn't look away as he meticulously dissected her, preserving every inch of her flawless skin. The days blurred together in a haze of pain and terror. I lost track of time, my sense of reality slipping away. Dr. Hale's workshop was a nightmarish place, filled with the preserved remains of his creations, mannequins made from human skin, their eyes empty and lifeless, each one a testament to his twisted obsession with beauty. He would often sit with me, showing me his latest work. His eyes would light up with pride as he described the process, the care he took in preserving every detail. He spoke of his victims as if they were willing participants, thanking them for their contribution to his art. I knew I had to escape. I couldn't let myself become another one of his macabre creations. I watched him closely, noting his routines, his habits. He was meticulous, but he was also arrogant. He believed he was untouchable, that his genius would protect him. One night, while he was engrossed in his work, I managed to loosen the ropes binding my wrists. My heart pounded in my chest as I crept towards the door, praying he wouldn't notice. I reached the handle and pulled, but it was locked. Panic surged through me as I fumbled with the keys I had stolen from his pocket. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I screamed, turning to face Dr. Hale. His eyes were filled with a mix of rage and disappointment. "Why would you want to leave?" he asked softly. "Don't you see the beauty in what I am creating?" I had to find a way out. I couldn't let him win. My mind raced with plans, but each one seemed more hopeless than the last. Dr. Hale was always one step ahead, always anticipating my next move. But then I noticed something, a small, overlooked detail. The door to his workshop had a flaw, a weak spot that could be exploited. It wasn't much, but it was my only chance. I waited until he was distracted, then made my move. I used a piece of broken glass to pry open the door, slipping out into the cold, dark hallway. My heart pounded as I ran, my footsteps echoing through the silence. I stumbled through the darkness, my vision blurred by tears and exhaustion. I could hear Dr. Halley's voice behind me, calm and unhurried. "Come back, my dear," he called out. "You don't understand. This is for your own good." I didn't stop. I couldn't. I pushed myself forward, desperate to escape the nightmare that had consumed my life. I found a window and shattered it, climbing out into the night. The cold air hit me like a slap, but I welcomed it. It meant I was free, or so I thought. The police didn't believe me at first. My story sounded too fantastical, too horrific, but they couldn't ignore the evidence. Dr. Halley's workshop was discovered, a house of horrors that defied imagination. The mannequins, his masterpieces, were all there, silent witnesses to his madness. Dr. Hale himself was nowhere to be found. He had vanished, leaving behind only his twisted legacy. The authorities launched a manhunt, but I knew he was too clever to be caught so easily. I tried to rebuild my life, but the memories haunted me. I couldn't escape the feeling that he was still out there, watching, waiting. Every shadow, every creak of the floorboards filled me with dread. I knew he would come for me eventually. The nightmares never stopped. Dr. Halley's voice echoed in my mind, his cold blue eyes haunting my every waking moment. I moved to a new city, changed my name, and tried to disappear, but he found me. I knew he would. One night I returned home to find a package on my doorstep. Inside was a single preserved rose and a note. "Your beauty will be eternal, my masterpiece. M.H." I dropped the note, my hands trembling. He was still out there, and he wasn't finished with me. I could feel his presence, like a shadow creeping closer with each passing day. The fear became too much to bear. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every sound, every movement in the dark sent me into a panic. I knew I couldn't keep running. He would find me, no matter where I went. I began to prepare. I fortified my home, set traps, and learned how to defend myself. I knew it was only a matter of time before he made his move. I wouldn't go down without a fight. It happened on a stormy night. The wind howled outside, rain pounding against the windows. I was on edge, every nerve in my body tingling with anticipation, and then I heard it. The sound of a window breaking, footsteps in the hallway. I grabbed the knife I kept by my bed and moved silently towards the nose. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I had to be ready. I rounded the corner, and there he was, Dr. Hale, standing in the darkness, his eyes glinting with madness. He smiled when he saw me, a twisted, sickening grin. "Hello, my dear," he said softly. "It's time to finish what we started." What happened next is a blur. The fight was fierce, brutal. I remember the feel of the knife in my hand, the smell of blood, the sound of his laughter. I fought with everything I had, driven by a desperate need to survive. And then it was over. Dr. Hale lay on the floor, motionless. I stood over him, gasping for breath, my hands stained with his blood. I had won, but at what cost? I looked around at the chaos, the destruction. My home, my life, everything I had fought for was in ruins. I knew I could never escape the darkness he had brought into my life. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. I had survived, but I was forever changed. The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, and I was left to pick up the pieces. But one question haunted me, lingering in the back of my mind. Had I truly defeated Dr. Hale, or had he won by dragging me into his world of madness and despair? The answer eluded me, a dark, twisted enigma that I would carry with me for the rest of my days. The end, or perhaps the beginning of a new nightmare. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you again next week.